was arguably the biggest content drop in MLB The Show 22. 60 plus cards are here in Diamond Dynasty from the finest program and new event and collections. So today I want to go through, I'm going to tier list these cards. I'm going to tier list all of this content that we got live, in the fact that I'm going to put the tier list together as we go and give our initial thoughts on the content in the featured program. We've got a lot to talk about, so without further ado, let's hop on into it. Oh wait, I do have to mention one thing though. This video is sponsored by me. But for real, I do have merch finally available after nearly 2 years of not having it. This hat is not going to be available yet, but you can get it at some point soon. And this shirt, as you see, got my logo in the front. And look at the back, Takashi Scann. If you guys want to get it, support me, definitely go check out the link. I'm going to put it in the description and in the comment section. The merch is really cool. This is definitely the best merch I've ever really put out. There's actually a sale going on for this specific shirt right now, so make sure you go get it now while it is on sale. So here's what we are gonna do to try to make this easy. I'm gonna have the gameplay on the right side, and we'll take a glance at the players' attributes as we put them in the list, and then we'll put them in the designated tier. We're not gonna do the full-blown tier list because this is just the first day we got the content, so I want to see which cards maybe play above the attributes, but expect next week a complete overhaul in the tier list because we have so many good cards. Just to go through all the avenues of content in case you just hopped on the game today and are confused, we have the finest of the franchise program. 30 bosses are in this program, 5 cards in each division. There are classics packs, which bring back finest cards from previous games. Are fun cards to be back in the game, but again, not every single one of these cards are going to be purposeful. They are henchmen, and they might not be on your God Squad, but at the end of the day, some of these cards are going to be very glitchy and really good to use on your team. And then you see we have another 15 for the NL as well. And then we have our bosses, 5 per each pack, and they are very stacked. These are going to be the cards you want to target on your team, and they aren't going to be too expensive. They're already 50K and the content just dropped, and they're going to be very obtainable. So make sure you go out, grind the program, and scoop them up as soon as you can. Let's start off with the AL Classic pack with the older cards from the older MLB The Show games. Jose Iglesias, not a bad shortstop, good contact, but too low on the power. In comparison to the other content we're gonna have, I'm gonna put him in the C tier, but at least the contact and defense makes him usable. Alex Verdugo is another one of those, except he's got good power versus right and a little bit more value being an outfielder, I would say, but still I wouldn't put him much higher than Iglesias. Put him right next to him. DJ LeMahieu, I know I have my Yankee fan bias, but this man has got good contact, solid power versus left. Not going to be a top second base option, but I think he gets a little bit more versatility than Verdugo and Iglesias because he's bringing better overall power and plays in the infield. So I'm going to put LeMahieu in the B tier. Charlie Morton does not have the best pitch mix, 97 overall, a little bit low on the hits per 9 in comparison to the stacked hitting you have at this point in the game. So I don't think this is going to be a super high priority card in my opinion. I think I will put him in the C or D tier. I think I'll put him in C for now. Lourdes Gurriel, actually pretty well rounded on the overall hitting and fielding and can play a lot of positions, but again, isn't really super incredible at anything. I feel like I'll put him in the LeMahieu tier. Brad Hand, lefty reliever, not an incredible one, but is a lefty reliever nonetheless. He's got the slider, he has a good hits per 9. It's just for some reason, I feel like this Brad Hand card when we had it isn't really going to be the best with that pitch mix that he brings, but you could definitely find a good use for him. So I will put him in the A tier in the fact that you can get some use out of the bullpen out of him. Tim Anderson mashes lefties, solid defense and speed. 109 and 79 versus right isn't really bad either. And he gets those live series quirks to boost him up a little bit above those attributes. I partially want to put him above LeMahieu and Lourdes, but again, I feel like this card is a more niche card for teams, so I'm going to put him in the same level. Matthew Boyd, if there's any card that is a D tier, it's him. Just a 94 overall. He's not someone that people really want to use in their teams at this point, but nonetheless could be a fun Tigers team card, but he's D tier for sure. Salvi Perez. He got his card from MLB 20. As much as I would have loved for it to be his card from last year, this card still will be pretty solid. It just the 88 contact might be a little bit low for some of the pitchers we're going to have at this point in the game, but it's definitely more usable than the other finest cards we've gotten so far. So I'm going to put him in the A tier. Jorge Polanco. This card is nasty. Definitely going to be a very viable middle infield option. This card was super fun last year. He doesn't have many quirks. I think he only has Unfazed as an actual live series active quirk. But nonetheless, Polanco is a fun one. You guys loved his milestone card from earlier in the year. I'll put him in the A or S tier. I think I'll leave him in the A for now. Kyle Tucker is actually really stacked. I'm surprised they brought this card back, because this was definitely one of the cream of the crop cards from last year. This is definitely a very viable outfield option, along with the quirks he's gonna get. Definitely an S tier card. David Fletcher, high contact, good defense, but just lacks the power. Definition of a noodle bat. But the Fletch God is a little fun in that sense. I will put him in the Jose Iglesias tier though. Liam Hendricks has 125 hits in Ks per 9, but I just don't like his pitch mix too much. I don't know what it is. I just feel like he doesn't play well for a reliever. Doesn't have outlier or anything. Doesn't have the best overall pitch mix, so it's tougher to pitch with a reliever of his type. However, is a reliever and brings value in the fact that there is a lot less depth in the bullpen, even with this content drop. So I would put him probably in the B tier. I would rather use Brad Hand as a reliever since he's a big old lefty. Mitch Haniger. This card was actually very underrated. If you like this face of the franchise from early on in the year, this actually is going to be a very good one to use. At least a good bat versus left, still solid versus righties. I'm going to put him right in the Jorge Polanco tier. And then last but definitely not least, Lance Lynn. He's got sinker, cutter. I did like this card a bit back in MLB 20. You could definitely use him on some fun theme teams, but he's definitely not going to be a top tier starter with that 106 hits per 9 at this point. We have so many players with like 110 plus hitting attributes. I don't know if 106 hits per 9 is going to be enough for right now, but nonetheless, a viable starter who could get some purpose, A tier. Now we flip over to the NL Classics. We got Ozzie Albies, who is definitely a very platoony hitter. Definitely more of a versus lefty type batter. I don't think you want to use 88 and 69 versus righties at this point in the game. But Ozzie Albies does seem to be a fun switch hitting card. I'm going to put him again in that C tier right next to like the Verdugos and such. Miguel Rojas almost is just like a weird 99. Just boosted his vision, discipline, and clutch. Not really a top tier shortstop by any means, but again, could be a fun theme team card for you Marlins fans, but not the most useless. I'll put him in the C tier again. Zach Wheeler had a very fun card last year. He's got outlier on the sinker, so he's gonna pitch with some good velocity. 108 hits per 9 is still pretty viable for right now, and I would definitely say with some of the quirks he has, he can play a little bit above those attributes if those things are active. I am going to say he's an A or S tier starter. I think I'll say S tier, because you could definitely put this card in your rotation to find a little bit more success than someone like Lance Lynn, for example. Marcus Stroman, another player who had a fun face of the franchise card earlier in the year, but just a little bit lower on those hits per 9. But nonetheless, is going to have that fun sinker cutter mix. Honestly, seems a lot like the Lance Lynn type pitcher, so I'll put him there. Anthony Rendon's 99 finest from MLB 19. Honestly, very well-rounded, but not really good at anything. Definitely a usable card, though. I feel like putting him in that B tier with the guys like LeMahieu and Lourdes Gurriel. But again, I don't think people are going to be rushing to use this card in their God Squad unless they are a diehard Nats fan. Frank Schwindel had a very fun card last year. I'm so glad they brought this card back. This is at least a very good bench bat versus left, but 124, 105 versus right is very viable. As a first baseman, that defense is going to be more than fine. I personally think he might get more use or viabilities than the guys in the A tier, but I'm just going to put him in the A tier because I just don't know with how stacked first base is. This card is bringing enough quirks or something to really make him super valuable. You know, we're gonna make a slight change. We're going to put Polanco, Schwindel, and Haniger in the S tier. You could definitely use those cards on your God Squad and be more than fine. However, the cards in the S plus will definitely be my favorites of the finest, so you will see those cards will likely be significantly better. Jesse Winker definitely is at least a great bench bat. He gets some live series quirks, but the pinch hitter quirk as well. Nearly maxed out splits versus righties. Not going to be the best starter card though, because 98, 105 versus left isn't super stacked. Again, I would put him in the S tier because you could definitely use him on that bench. Devin Williams, if there's any easy S plus tier card, it is him. He's got 125 hits and Ks per 9, However, his walks per 9 is a little bit low, so his par is going to be a little bit big, but he does have sinker, cutter, changeup, and the fact that this card now exists with pinpoint pitching, he's going to be a stud. Jacob Stallings is definitely a platoon bat versus lefties, defense guy on the bench for a catcher. You probably don't want to start someone with 87 and 84 versus right. I think someone like Salvi Perez gets a little bit more versatility than him, so I'm going to put him in the B tier. Jack Flaherty getting his finest card returning. Not the best pitch mix. 106 hits per 9 is very eh. I don't know if you're going to have that much pitchability with him. So for me, he's not a top tier starter by any means. I'll put him in that C tier. Ketel Marte. It's very interesting they brought back the 98 instead of his 99. I guess because his other card was used so much earlier this year, it just kind of felt like that they had to take a break from Ketel Marte. However, you could definitely start this card in your team and be good. 113, 115 contact is very solid. The 84 power versus right might feel a little low, along with the 105 power versus left. But just in general, if you have not used the Ketel Marte card, he is always a fun one. But again, in comparison to other players that we have, I don't know if this card is bringing enough attributes to really warrant being a must-use right now. I'm going to put him in the A tier. I think Jorge Polanco does what this card does, but better. CJ Cron had a fun All-Star Game card earlier in the year. A nice, well-rounded bat, but isn't really the best at anything. I will put him in the S tier because you could definitely use him. Walker Buehler, this card was in the finest pack last year. He has sinker, cutter, 117 hits per 9 is very valid at this point in the year, especially for this year where you don't have too many super stacked pitchers. Kinda seems like an S plus tier pitcher in my opinion, but I'm gonna put him in the S because I think there are gonna be some pitchers in the bunch that are gonna be better than Walker Buehler, but you could definitely use this card in your rotation. Drew Pomeranz, maxed out hits and Ks per 9, but again, not the most stacked pitch mix. The question is, would you rather use him or Brad Hand? I might put them in the same level because they have good attributes, but the thing that hurts Pomeranz is the 4-seam and 2-seam. They aren't really bringing much value. You may as well just have a 4-seam and then the cutter. But the best part about him is the 4-seam cutter mix. You can definitely find some success with that. I'll put them right next to each other. And then they brought back this stud, Brandon Crawford. This card was so fun last year. Great fielding, just very slow for a shortstop. He's not going to have much range, but this is still a fun bat that is definitely a very startable shortstop for now. I'm going to put him in the S tier again. Whew, those classic cards were exhausting, but we still got a ways to go. We have our finest of the franchise program cards. So we got to start off in our AL East. Adley Rutschman, 100-100 contact and power versus left is solid. Stacked 99 fielding. And 122 and 116 versus right is nutty, especially for this current game of catcher. He's going to be one of the best catchers. In my opinion, seems like an upgrade from Jorge Posada, but is definitely at least on par with that. So I would definitely put him in the S plus tier. Xander Bogaerts. This card I think is going to be really fun because it's stacked like other really fun Xander cards, like his All-Star Game card last year, where he has higher contact and power, but still good power. This is like a Jimmy Rollins type hitter. It's Xander Bogaerts' swing with live series quirks. So just saying, this is going to be a top shortstop in the game. My dude, Nasty Nestor. He's got the sinker cutter mix. 121 hits per 9 is nasty. He gets up to 125 at parallel 4. And even though he does throw a little slow, he's going to be that Greg Maddux type pitcher. He doesn't have much velocity, so his pars are going to be very small. In my opinion, he could be a top starter if you like the control type pitchers, if you like Greg Maddux. However, if you're playing the lower difficulties, you may prefer the higher velocity. But I don't know, for me, he's going to be a top tier starter. Shane McClanahan has the attributes, but doesn't have the pitch mix to be super incredible. No outlier to really benefit him as well, but at least he's got some nice quirks and such to make him a solid starter. I'm going to put him in the S tier just because he has the attributes and pretty solid enough pitch mix where you could definitely use him, but he's not going to be a top tier starter with that stuff. And then Vladdy has a 99 finest for this year. He's going to get up to diamond fielding, which might not be the most valuable in the corner infield, but it's good to have. I love Vlad Jr. cards. He's got the reverse splits, and he is someone that again gets a lot of live series active quirks. So he will play above those attributes. Definitely an S plus tier option for a first third base player. Sliding over to the AL Central, Jose Ramirez, switch hitting third baseman, stacked splits versus righties, he's got the small strike zone, and again, another player who should have a good amount of quirks. I definitely want to say he's at least at Jorge Polanco level, but with the level of splits he has versus righties, I would argue he brings more value. He's also bringing better defense. I'm going to put him in the S+ tier. Honestly, you're going to notice that a lot of these cards are going to be super viable, and for the current finest cards, it's going to be tough for me to not put him in the S+ tier. Dylan Cease, good sinker, slider. He's at a very slow changeup, which is going to be his best pitch, and 122 hits per 9 is really good. However, 79 walks per 9 means that the pars on especially that fastball and sinker are going to be very big because they are also high velocity. So while he definitely could be a very solid pitcher, I do worry a little bit about how effective he's going to be despite having that good hits per 9. I worry about the control. However, he will definitely be a very solid starter. I would say at least in that Zach Wheeler level. Tarek Skubal, I feel like that's how you say his name. I don't know if it's Tariq. He had that earlier monthly award card that a lot of people liked for a while. He's got 108 hits per 9, which is very solid. Primary pitch slider, he's got a sinker. He was a fun, underrated card from earlier on in the year, and I'm glad he's got a 99. He's gonna have really good control with that 110 walks per 9 too. I will say though, I don't know if he's got the overall pitch mix to be super lights out, you know, missing a cutter from the main meta type pitches, but nonetheless should be a very good starter. I would put him on that front end of the S tier. Bobby Witt Jr. has a really fun shortstop card, 99 speed if you're going for that big speed boy. However, I think Trevor Story does what this card is, but better. Not to say that this card is bad, because being real, Bobby Witt should be a really fun middle infield option for shortstop, really. But I don't know if this card is going to be a must-use. Like, I think Xander Bogaerts brings better overall well-rounded attributes plus the quirks. So I'm going to put him in the S tier. It seems like a card that's very on par with the finest of last year. And then Yohan Duran, easy. Might be the easiest S+ tier I've ever had. While I did put his tops now a little bit lower on my other tier list, just because I think he was used a lot this year, this version is going to be a must-use. That level of walks per 9, that level of hits and Ks per 9, and again, the outlier splitter, or the splinker, absolute must-use in the bullpen, and actually on all difficulties. AL West time, Jose Altuve, solid contact. I would argue this is the best Altuve card we have gotten, really. And I think he could be a very solid second baseman. And you know, the small strike zone is a benefit to players like him. Less spots to aim. However, you might fall vulnerable to swinging at the high stuff. But without a doubt, this is a top tier second base shortstop option. I'm gonna put him in the S+ tier. Taylor Ward, honestly might be one of the most versatile cards in the program. He could play virtually everywhere with gold defense. 84 speed means he's going to be good at each of those positions, and he can play catcher. And he's bringing very well-rounded attributes. If you used his monthly award card earlier on, you will definitely like this card. He might not be the go-to pick at any position, but he's going to be a top one at every position he plays. I'm going to put him in the S+ tier because especially if you're shuffling players around, you could get him in your lineup in any way possible. Sean Murphy definitely doesn't seem like a bad catcher. Good defense, solid hitting. You got the little booty too, if you remember that clip from earlier this year. This is a fun catcher. I don't think he's a top catcher, but a good catcher for Sean Murphy. I wouldn't say he's a must-use. Definitely an S tier card though, because he is bringing good contact, power, and defense at the catcher position, which is always valuable. But I think there are other catchers, like I'd argue Jorge Posada is going to bring more value than Sean Murphy. Julio has a 99. 99 speed, diamond fielding. He doesn't get the benefit of many active live series quirks, but he's got the reverse splits. This card will be a demon, especially as you parallel him. Definitely going to be a top tier outfield choice, especially if you don't have that 99 Trout yet. So I'm going to put him in the S+ tier. And then Adolis Garcia, I think this card actually is going to be very slept on in the program because there are other big outfielder names people are going to end up using. But diamond fielding, 83 speed, really good splits versus righties. So I think this is going to be a very underrated outfield option. And I would say he's going to be an S+ tier outfielder because the level of hitting, speed, and defense he's bringing. And you know what? Now that I just mentioned it, I'm looking at this and feeling a little wrong with Kyle Tucker. I'm going to put him in the S+ tier too. That's the AL done. Now we go over to the NL. Spencer Strider getting it going for the NL East. He has outlier on the 4-seam, which does increase his viability. I would rather use him than, say, Shane McClanahan, but still just is lacking a little bit on the pitch mix. If he had that 5th pitch, if it was something like a second fastball, like a cutter, or maybe a curveball, something to add a little bit more depth to the pitch mix, he would be incredible. But this is still a very good starter for right now. I think the best comparison is that Shane McClanahan, so I'm gonna put them right next to each other. Sandy Alcantara. Primary pitch changeup means you could spam it. He's gonna have outlier on the sinker. He's got definitely better control. 110 walks per 9 is gonna be great with that level of velocity he brings. This, in my opinion, is gonna be one of the top starters you get in the program. He was fun in his all-star game form, and on paper, Sandy seems like a stud. I would recommend him. Definitely is one of the best starters in the program. Big Meat Pete. Maxed out power versus both sides. He's got the reverse split, so he'll actually be better versus righties. And this is another live series quirk demon, so he'll play above those attributes. First base is a very stacked position, especially at this current point in the game. However, that maxed out power versus both sides is definitely worth it. And that contact will play above the 106 and 116 with the quirks. I'm going to put him in the S+ tier. Aaron Nola, sinker cutter mix, 110 hits per 9, 122 walks per 9. So his pars are going to be really tiny with that level of walks per 9. However, if he had a slider, that would be a pitch that really took him to another level. Gives me a lot of Walker Buehler vibes, being real. So while Walker Buehler has the better hits per 9 and maybe a little bit more velocity, Nola is going to be a little bit more of the control side, but bringing the higher walks per 9. So I'm actually going to put him right next to Walker Buehler. Joey Meneses. This is actually a stacked card. Holy, gold fielding. You're playing the corner, infield, and outfield. Top tier contact. Really good splits versus lefties. Giving me big Frank Schwindel energy from last year. So I think that's probably the best comparison to him. But definitely a very good card. I like this card a lot. But not really a live series quirk demon by any means. Not really anyone super stacked. So I'm going to put him right next to Frank Schwindel. Now to the NL Central. Nico Horner should be really fun for a second baseman. The attributes scream Hannes Wagner type. He doesn't get many live series quirks, none really, but good fielding, good speed. If you liked Hannes Wagner, definitely give this card a go in your middle infield. But I don't think he's on paper a top tier player just because of the power at this point in the game. It's not really that flashy. So for me, it's definitely a good card, but not really a must-use by all means. I'll put him in the S tier, kind of next to that Jorge Polanco type. Hunter Green. He's got outlier on the 4-seam. They found a way to give my man a 99. Solid on the hits and Ks per 9, but that pitch mix again seems basically like a Spencer Strider type. So we honestly would put him in the same class. It's too bad he didn't give him like a sinker or something like his Future Stars card last year, but it makes sense. He doesn't really throw a sinker like that. His live series has 4-seam, 2-seam, and such like this, so they kept it accurate to the live series. But there's definitely a Spencer Strider type pitcher where the velocity is going to be in his favor. Also, keep in mind, he can hit a little bit. Hunter Renfroe might have an argument of being one of the best cards. He's like Pete Alonso, but can play in the outfield with diamond defense. Or if you play him at first, he'll have gold defense there too. Stacked. If you never used Hunter Renfroe in Battle Royale, you just don't know. This has the potential to be one of the most underrated and underused cards for how good he's going to be. So I'm going to put him in the S+ tier. Brian Reynolds, one of the easiest S+ tier cards in the game. Honestly brings some of the most well-rounded hitting attributes of the entire program. All above 114 on the contact and power. One parallel gets him the diamond fielding with 90+ speed in his outfield. And he is a quirk demon. You could honestly argue this is one of, if not the best cards in the game right now. Nolan Arenado. Pretty good actually for a Nolan card. 99 defense is valuable. Good splits versus righties and lefties. And again, those quirks that he's going to have are going to help him play a little bit above those attributes, mainly the 107 contact versus left. 107 contact versus left is definitely not too low though. I use 99 milestone judge, and it's more than usable. However, it might not be what you really ideally want in comparison to other players like, say, Jimmy Fox, but you're getting the benefit of the defense with Nolan. So for me, he's definitely an S+ tier player. Now we go to the NL West. Dalton Varsho. I know you see the attributes and they aren't the best ever, but they gave him 125 power versus right. He's got 99 fielding and 84 speed as a catcher option. If you want a speedy catcher, this is the guy you should use. He's going to be someone that plays above some of those attributes, mainly the splits versus lefties, because he's got a fan favorite swing. Like Varsho's been a fun card in like Battle Royale and such for the last couple years. I don't think this is a must use, but definitely a fun catcher option. I think Taylor Ward does what he does, but better though. Daniel Bard, maxed out hits per 9, nearly on the Ks per 9, outlier sinker, gonna be a top reliever option for right now in the game. Absolutely worth the S+ tier. Freddie Freeman actually is really nice. This is the first time we got a Freddie card that was more contact oriented. A lot of his cards would be a little bit more on the power, mainly the power versus righties. Gold defense at first base. He is a quirk god, so he's gonna have a little bit more power in the attributes show. While on paper, you may think something like Babe Ruth is more attractive with 125 everything. Freddie should be a very, very good first base option. I'm gonna put him in the S+ tier because the level of contact he's bringing is definitely viable on all levels, and the amount of quirks he brings with that level of power that cause him to play a little bit above those attributes. I think he's a stud. Manny Machado, honestly a very similar card to what Nolan Arenado is. However, you're getting a little bit more hitting overall, it seems, at the sacrifice of a little bit of fielding, but that's perfectly fine. Machado's fun. A lot of people like this All-Star Game card. Again, gets some good quirks. His comp is definitely, though, Nolan Arenado, so they're definitely in that same class. I'd put them right next to each other. And then last, but definitely not least, Logan Webb, 112 hits per 9. He has a sinker, but he doesn't have a cutter like his card did last year. So I think this is definitely a good starter, but might not be a top of the list starter because again, he's missing that one pitch to really make him easier to pitch with. But I'm gonna put him right next to Zach Wheeler. I think he's definitely gonna be a solid starter, but not gonna be the top tier starter. Whew, that was exhausting, but we've got more to talk about here, folks. We have the new event featuring, as you see, Jacob deGrom. But first, we gotta talk about Jose Abreu. Honestly, a slightly worse Freddie Freeman, but still good nonetheless. I'm gonna put him in the S tier, because you definitely could use him, probably like a Frank Schwindel type hitter. Honestly, that's probably his best comparison. But again, Abreu gets some quirks, play a little bit above those attributes. So I do like this card a bit. Felix Bautista, definitely a solid reliever option. The only downside with him is that he has outlier on the 4 seam, but I just don't know how I feel about the overall pitch mix. I don't know if I just haven't used him enough, but I feel like the other relievers like Daniel Bard, Yohan Duran are going to be a class above him in terms of relievers. So I wouldn't really rush to get him, but he's definitely going to be a viable reliever to add to your pen. So I think he's definitely at least an S tier card. Michael Harris, the guy who I thought was going to be Byron Buxton in the event. Good splits versus righties, 125 and 120 is nice with 98 fielding and 99 speed. And I guess if you do have a chance of facing some solid lefties at this point in the game, it's something to be wary of. But this is going to be one of the best defenders in center field, paired with good attributes versus righties. Definitely at least an S tier card, but he's definitely on the back end of it for sure. Jacob deGrom, but what else is there to say? I mean, I made a whole video about how this card dominated MLB The Show 21, and this card is better. He's got better hits and Ks per 9 and walks per 9. All you need is 2 parallels to get this man to 125 hits per 9. So this card has the potential to be the best pitcher in the game. So, whoop. And then under the Legend and Flashback collections, if you collect a bunch of the finest cards, you earn Buxton, Max Scherzer, Edwin Diaz, and Paul Goldschmidt as finest cards. First, you have Byron Buxton. And I'm not gonna lie, this is the only card that I looked at today and was just like, what the heck happened? Like, I know it's Byron Buxton. He didn't hit for that well of an average at all. We're giving Adley Rutschman 100 contact versus lefties when he was basically a non-factor. And you're gonna give Byron Buxton 88 contact versus right. It feels a little bit inhumane in my opinion. But nonetheless, he does get the active quirks to boost him up a little bit, but he doesn't have too many. Day player is gonna be the only thing that directly affects the size of that PCI. I don't think this is a card that's a must use. But if you play on all-star difficulty, or if you parallel this card up to like parallel 5, he will be a viable outfielder for sure with the level of power and fielding and speed he's gonna bring. But I just don't think he's gonna be as good as a lot of the other outfielders solely for that contact. You could take the risk, but being real, I don't know how excited I am about this card. I'm going to put him in the A tier for now. Max Scherzer is 116 hits per 9, one of the better overall attribute splits of the pitchers we have. And they gave him the special Randy Johnson slider slurve mix. I like that a lot, actually. Paired with the circle change and the four-seam cutter, really good speed differentials. This is definitely going to be one of the better starters in the game. So I am definitely going to put him in the S+ tier. I would say he's one of the best starters, like definitely in that DeGrom, Sandy level type pitcher for sure. Edwin Diaz, maxed hits and Ks per 9, really solid in the walks per 9 with 96. The 3 pitch is the only thing to be weary about. However, he does get outlier to make that differential between the four seam and the sinker more valuable. So honestly, if there's anything good with this card, the 3 pitches are the 3 pitches you would pitch with him likely anyway. But you know, there's always value in having that changeup type pitch just because he has that sinker. The sinker I would rather have than Batista's cutter. So for me, I'm going to put him in the S+ tier, but honestly, he might end up being right next to Felix Bautista. And then Paul Goldschmidt, the likely NL MVP. Max splits versus left, definitely gets the benefit of being the bench bat for that. 88 fielding at first, it can be very solid. And then 113 and 110 versus right is good. You know, especially at a power premium position like first base. And these quirks will help him play a little bit better versus righties. I think he's definitely S+ tier, but I know it's going to raise the question, hey Scan, why do you think that Goldschmidt is better than, say, Frank Schwindel when Schwindel brings more viable contact? But the thing I think about Goldschmidt is that he's got a swing that people like a lot of people have used his live series, Supercharge, and All-Star Game card for a while. And he also has the quirks to boost him. While Frank Schwindel does have the maxed out contact basically versus both sides, he's also going to be a little bit weaker on the power, and I just prefer to lean towards the power at first base. So for me, I think Goldschmidt is an S+ tier first baseman. Definitely not last, Corbin Burnes. 120 hits per 9. He's got the cutter sinker mix as per usual. Outlier on the sinker. Everyone loved 97 Corbin Burnes from the All-Star break, and giving the better attributes, this card is going to be filthy. Definitely a top starter in the game type material. However, he's going to be a little bit more difficult to get out of the headliner collection. However, keep in mind though, you could definitely get him within some reason, especially if you're like me who've been saving your stubs up for a while. For me, I'm going to put him above Sandy and Max Scherzer. I think DeGrom and Corbin Burnes have the potential to be the 1 and 2 best starters in the game right now. And yes, since he's technically a part of the drop, I did include Finest Mike Trout. Definitely, you compare him to the cards kind of going full circle, he still stands as one of the best cards for sure. Like, he's still a class above a guy like a Byron Buxton, Adolis Garcia, and all those guys that can play center. I think the card that really is in contention with him is Brian Reynolds. So, while this card definitely isn't a must-use at this point in the game, I think he's still one of the best cards, if not the best cards, of our content this last week. And last thing I want to mention with these tier lists, I do want to really say that at this point in the game, it's about having fun. You know, you might not be rushing to make World Series or go 12-0. Just use the teams that you have the most fun with. That's what this game is about. As you see with my tier list of all the finest cards, you could really use any one of those cards really and have fun. There aren't really any cards other than maybe that Matthew Boyd where I'm like, hey, you can't use this card at all. And I'll be spending the entire weekend just trying all these cards, and we'll have some final adjustments for a big tier list next week. But I appreciate you all watching this video. Let me know in the comments, who do you think are some of your favorite cards of the content we've gotten so far? I know this is a very long watch, but we had so many cards to talk about. I thought this is the best way to go about it. You all have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you all again on the next one. Deuces.